Patriot Act 1 destroyed large sections of the Bill of Rights. It annihilated the First, Third, Fourth, Fifth Amendment, seriously damaged the Seventh and the 10th. Now there's Patriot Act 2. As if Patriot Act 1 wasn't good enough. Congressman Ron Paul, when speaking to Insight magazine, told them that no member of Congress was allowed to read the first Patriot Act that was passed by the House on October 27, 2001. The first Patriot Act was universally decried by civil libertarians and constitutional scholars from across the political spectrum. William Safire, while writing for the New York Times, described the first Patriot Act as powers by saying that President Bush was seizing dictatorial control. On February 7, 2003, the Center for Public Integrity, a nonpartisan public interest think tank in D.C., revealed the full text of the Domestic Security Enhancement Act of 2003. The classified document had been leaked to them by an unnamed source inside the federal government. The document consisted of a 33-page section-by-section analysis and the accompanying 87-page bill. And all this time, after they were caught, the White House tried to deny it.
There is not a proposed Terrorist Act 2.
Then it turned out the bill had actually already been introduced as S-22 by the Democrats. In fact, the title was almost identical. Whereas the House version was the Domestic Security Enhancement Act, the Senate version was the Justice and Domestic Security Enhancement Act of 2003. The only difference with the Senate version is it's full of gun control laws, like Our Lady of Peace Act that registers gun owners, a national ballistics database, shuts down private sellers at gun shows. It just dwarfs the 1968 Gun Control Act. And by the way, Republicans are supporting this legislation. S-89 has also been introduced. It's the Universal National Service Act of 2003. And let me tell you, it's the hallmark of a command and control society. The description of the bill is to provide for the common defense by requiring that all young persons in the United States, including women, perform a period of military service or civilian service in furtherance of the national defense and homeland security and for other purposes. We have looked at some of the programs that the federal government has already been setting up for national service here in the new homeland, and they include East German-style tattletale squads of every type, which are just basically a super tips program. It's similar to programs they've had in Russia since Stalin's era and continuing to this day, where they take junior high and high school students and train them in warrant service, gun confiscation, tax police, fugitive apprehension, you name it. Literal Hitler-Jugend brown shirts.
Taking 11-year-old children and teaching them the finer points of collecting taxes. And teaching them to do this. These are their role models, Russia's rough and ready tax police. They knock on the door, you know it's time to pay your taxes. They wear black masks and are famous for beating up tax cheats in the Russian mafia. Their motto, we have guns and we know how to use them.
The Patriot Act 2 bill itself is stamped confidential, not for distribution. Upon reading the analysis of the bill, I was stunned by the systematically crafted tyranny contained in the legislation. The Justice Department Office of Legislative Affairs admits that they have indeed covertly transmitted a copy of legislation to Speaker of the House, Dennis Hastert, and of course we already told you the Democrats have already introduced the bill. And there's dozens of sections in it, actually hundreds of sections in it, but Section 501 allows them to strip Americans of their citizenship and designate them for enemy combatants under Section 802 of the first Patriot Act that reads, any action that endangers human life that is a violation of any federal or state law. Now understand, you think this is just for, Habib Ahmed, the terrorist suspect over in Jordan, so you don't think it'll affect you. It says over and over again to fight international terrorism, domestic terrorism, and crime. The definition of terrorism, again, any action that endangers human life that violates any federal or state law. That's the first Patriot Act. They now say in Patriot Act 2 that they'll strip you of citizenship, secretly arrest you, and yes, even secretly execute you in one of the subsections. I mean, Hitler didn't even have the nerve to put stuff like that down on paper. He just did it. You're thinking, hey, Patriot Act 2 hasn't passed. Well, as soon as they engineer a terrorist attack, it will. And they've even said that if there's another terrorist attack, they'll pass it.
The war on terrorism was not just 9/11. That was just one of the battles. When you go to the grocery store and when you go to the football arena or other places, you have to think about these things differently.
So look what they've set up here. Every time there's an attack, they take more liberties while they leave the border wide open. And just a few more attacks, we'll be more enslaved than somebody in Soviet Russia. And it also has a subsection where if you know that your neighbor was grabbed by the police and you tell anyone, you can be designated